Okay, folks. Today I'm going to demonstrate Samba. Samba SMB is the service you'll need in order to tie a Windows or rather integrate a Windows server or client into a Linux network or vice versa. So if you've got some Linux clients and they need to talk to a network which is predominantly NTFS based, they're going to need Samba. Now you can build Linux clients with NTFS based storage all day long, but Samba is a networking protocol. It uses server message blocks. It used to be called CIFS, the Common Internet File System. I think, yes, Common Internet File Sharing, something along those lines. CIFS and SMB are more or less equivalent to each other. So what I've got here is I've got my Win10 client. I've got my infrastructure server. I have it up because, of course, it's providing the DHCP address for my Win10 client. And I've got my server here. So I cannot honestly remember if I have installed Samba yet. So, of course, the first thing I'm going to do is honestly nmap myself. Because if I nmap myself and certain ports come open, I know Samba is at least minimally installed. If not, I'll have to go the long way around with this. Let's see. I'm going to pause this. Okay. I realized a minute ago, after doing nmap and getting back FTP and HTTP, I was looking at the wrong server. So this is actually my file server, what I intend to use for NFS and Samba. I'm going to start with Samba. And as you can see right here, I am still on the wider network. I haven't flipped this over into the LAN segment. I also have SSH and only SSH running, which means I need to start from square one. Install Samba, configure Samba, and so on and so forth. So the first thing to do is, let's see. Okay, so sudo apt get install Samba server and Samba common. Samba and then Samba common, actually. Because if you only install Samba Common, you get the client, but not the server. That's a really important distinction to make. Notice that it also wants things like bind9, winbind, etc., DNS Python, a whole bunch of stuff. We are definitely not going to install bind9 on this box because it's already on the infrastructure server. We don't need two of these. There are also there's some Python stuff, some attribute stuff. We might do that, the attribute stuff, in a different lab later on. But for the moment, I want Samba and only Samba. So yes. And we're going to let this think for a minute. Now, the other good thing to do, particularly anytime, okay, so it is not being run as an AD domain controller, so it's masking the ADDC service. The other thing you might use Samba for, particularly if you're trying to support Windows-based clients, but you don't want to run a Windows network, what you can do is basically use Samba, build Active Directory, build it inside a Linux box, and then roll with it. So you don't have to deal with the issues of server 16, server 19, etc. Let's see, so it has also gotten some other stuff. Okay, cool. So the first thing we do is sudo service mdb mbd status. I'm going to check the status of these things. Now, the thing to note here is that there's no Samba service per se. There's an BD status and an SMBD status, an NMBD status and an SMBD status, but no Samba status specifically. So they're up and they're running, but they're not configured. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to sanity check myself with nmap localhost. So we see now I've got the SSN NetBIOS service and port 139 and port 145 set up. If I wanted to do this, now if I also had things like NFS running on this same system, I would also see some RPC related ports open, but without NFS, all I'm going to see is these two. These two by themselves are kind of a bit of an indicator, shall we say, that we are really kind of dealing with Samba or something related to Windows networking. Because Windows, and only Windows, uses things like NetBIOS. Now, I could actually do this a little, I could be a little bit more specific about this by doing this. Now, with some of these commands, if you're going to scan deeply, do things like SYN scans or TCP scans, you're going to need your sudo privilege first. So what I'm trying to get here is my version information. Okay, so I see the Samba, I see a file name, I see its Linux box, I see OpenSSH, so far so good. So, so the next thing I want to do is go into cd etc init.d, and what I'm going to do is I can actually issue those service status commands again. But actually, no, I'm not going to do that. If you haven't already done it, the thing about these service status commands is you don't have to be in etc initd for them. But let's look let's see what's here. So I see the Samba service, and let me try the Samba file right by itself. Okay, the Samba service is masked, inactive. Okay. The next thing you can do is check out what Samba version is. Okay, now let me do one more thing. Who owns these? Root owns these, of course. So if I were to do Samba-V, oh yeah, I didn't get anything back because I didn't run this as root. So my path looks like does not include things like sbin. So the next thing I'm going to do is we're going to go into what we're actually going to do is we're going to go cd Samba. We're going to go in the etc Samba directory. We're going to make a copy of this smbconf file because the last thing I want to do, as I've said many times before, is paint myself into a corner. There. Oh, I guess it would help if I told it what I wanted to do. So now I have a copy of this file. I can edit it and go from here. Okay, so the next thing I need to do is two things. One, create the shares I want to publish and then publish them. So I'm going to do some of my work in my home directory /home for my users, and then I'm going to jump back over to the other side into the etc Samba directory, edit SambaConf, restart the service, and see if it works. So I've got two users, AMP and Phoenix. So I'm going to do sudo mkdir shares. And I'm going to sudo mkdir. Now the next thing I need to do is give each user ownership of that directory because root owns shares, and I want that to stay the same. I want that to remain true. So I can use this chown command. So what this does, chown amp colon amp space amp slash, what that does is give the user amp both his user account and his group account, his group identity, ownership of this one directory. I can do this with two different commands using the chown and the chgroup command, but chown frankly is a little bit faster. And I can do the same thing for Phoenix. The thing I'm going to do now, okay, so I've done that. So ls-l will show me that yes, I have created these two accounts or these two directories, and I've given the appropriate user ownership of said directories. And now I'm going to go back over to my Samba conf and sudo vim smb conf, and boom. So I am in vim, I'm editing it as root, and I'm going to, my workgroup name remains workgroup. There's not actually a domain involved, so I need to find my shares down here, go way down here. And down. I didn't. Okay, so shares. So what I'm going to do is add some shares right quick. Okay, so I have added shared directories. Added these shares. I've made them browsable. I've made them read-writeable so that my users can place new files there. Now the next thing I need to do is validate the file. Okay, so I validate the file with the testparm command, also a root level command, so you do need sudo, and it'll tell me what I need to know. Okay, that's fine. The next thing to do is I have to create some usernames, and I'm going to create two of these. Now, the key point here is that you may have you'll have Linux users and Windows users, and you have to tie them together with SMB users. Just because they're there, just because there is a user of that name or user providing those credentials from a Windows box, doesn't mean it works. You have to add them directly. So I'll do that and come right back. Okay, so I have moved my file server into the LAN segment. I have given it a static address. I actually had to reboot it because I moved it into the LAN segment. It immediately picked up an address from the DHCP server, which is really not what I wanted it to do. And even after I set the address manually, did a link set up, link set down using the IP command, it still retained that leased address. So I rebooted it, I checked it, and now my next task is to log in here. My first course of action, of course, is to ping using CMD. So I can ping my Samba server. I can even resolve it. So what I can do now is go over here into my file explorer and do, let's see, come on you. Okay, so it was fighting me for a while. I ended up rebooting the system, the Windows 10 client. I changed some things on the Samba side, moved my share definition around a little bit. In any case, what I actually have here, I managed to do it through the command line rather than the GUI. I used the netuse command, netusex, and I pointed it at a share for /amp. So I can see now that I have an X drive that wasn't there before. I can go in here. Let me see if I can make a new text file. And it worked. I created a file, testsamba.txt.txt, on my Win10 client, and now I can see it on my server as an ASCII text file with no line termination, which indicates that it's a text file built the way DOS would do it. So that's Samba, sort of the